The twin suns of Valara Prime cast long shadows across the settlement of New Haven, as Aaron stood at the perimeter wall, his weathered hands gripping the plasma rifle that had seen better days. Beyond the energy barrier, in the crimson wasteland that stretched toward the mountains, movement stirred in the dying light. The feral cubs were gathering again. They had arrived on Valara Prime 3 generations ago, humanity's desperate gamble to escape the dying Earth. The colony ship had promised paradise, but what they found was a world already claimed, not by sentient beings, but by creatures the settlers came to call the Kethari, wolf-like predators with 6 legs and eyes that glowed like molten gold. They hunted in packs and showed no mercy, but it was their young, the cubs, that truly terrified the villagers. Abandoned by their packs, rejected for being too weak or too small, the feral cubs gathered in the wastelands, starving, desperate, and watching, always watching the human settlement with an intelligence that made Aaron's skin crawl. The village council had voted 3 times to exterminate them. 3 times Aaron had cast the lone dissenting vote. They're just hungry, he had argued, knowing how foolish it sounded. They're children. They're monsters, council leader Vera had spat back. And one day they'll tear us apart. That day came sooner than anyone expected, but not in the way they imagined. The attack began at midnight when the larger moon eclipsed its twin, plunging Valara into absolute darkness. The Kethari adult pack struck from 3 directions simultaneously, a coordinated assault that shattered New Haven's eastern wall within minutes. Plasma fire lit the night as colonists scrambled to defensive positions, but they were farmers and engineers, not soldiers. The creatures moved like liquid shadow, their howls echoing through the settlement as they overwhelmed position after position. Aaron fought alongside his neighbors, watching in horror as the defensive line crumbled. Vera fell beside him, her throat torn open before she could scream. Children huddled in the community center, their cries audible even over the chaos of battle. The Kethari were closing in for the kill. Then, from the wasteland came a different sound, a chorus of high-pitched howls, young voices, dozens of them, rising in defiant harmony. Aaron turned to see them pouring through the broken wall. The feral cubs, led by the largest among them, a scarred male the settlers had named Kor. The cub leader's golden eyes found Aaron's across the battlefield, and in that moment, something passed between human and beast, an understanding perhaps, or a debt acknowledged. The cubs crashed into the adult Kethari like a tidal wave of fury. They were smaller, weaker, lacking the raw power of their mature counterparts, but they fought with something the adults didn't possess, desperation born of rejection, and loyalty to the only beings who had ever shown them mercy. Kor led from the front, his jaws clamping down on the throat of a massive male 3 times his size. Other cubs swarmed the creature, their combined weight bringing it down. Aaron rallied the surviving colonists. Fall back to secondary positions. Protect the cubs' flanks. Protect them? Someone shouted. They're animals. They're saving our lives. Aaron roared back, raising his rifle and firing at a Kethari attempting to circle around Kor's position. The battle raged for hours. Cubs fell, their young blood staining the settlement's dirt streets, but they never retreated. For every cub that died, 2 adult Kethari followed. Aaron fought alongside Kor, the human and the cub moving in synchronization, covering each other's weaknesses. When Aaron's rifle overheated, Kor dragged him behind cover. When a pack leader cornered Kor, Aaron's plasma bolt saved the cub's life. As dawn broke over Valara Prime, the surviving adult Kethari retreated into the wasteland, their howls now tinged with something that sounded almost like respect. The settlement lay in ruins, fires burning across half the structures. 73 colonists had died, but they had survived, and it was the cubs who had made that survival possible. Kor limped toward Aaron, blood matting his silver fur. The cub leader's eyes, those terrifying golden eyes that had haunted the settlers' nightmares, now held something different. Trust, perhaps, or recognition of kinship forged in battle. Aaron knelt, extending his hand slowly. Kor sniffed it, then pressed his massive head against the human's palm. Around them, other cubs approached cautiously, and surviving colonists emerged from their shelters, seeing the creatures with new eyes. What do we do now? Asked Marcus, the new council leader, his voice shaking as he surveyed the devastation. Aaron looked at Kor, then at the 24 surviving cubs scattered throughout the settlement, licking their wounds among the humans they had saved. "We rebuild," he said. Together. The integration wasn't easy. Some colonists never overcame their fear, leaving New Haven for other settlements. But most stayed, and they learned. The cubs, now called the Guardian Pack, learned human gestures and commands. Humans learned the cubs' howl patterns, their social structures, their ways of thinking. Kor rarely left Aaron's side, becoming not just a protector but a partner. When the Cathari attacked again 6 months later, they faced not a helpless human colony, but a hybrid force of colonists and Guardian Pack fighting as one unified defense. The attackers broke and fled within an hour. Word spread across Valara Prime of the settlement where humans and cubs stood together. Other colonies began cautiously approaching their own feral cubs, extending the same mercy Aaron once had. Not all succeeded. Trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild, but those who did found what New Haven had discovered: that sometimes the greatest protectors were those you once feared most. Years later, as Aaron grew old and gray, he would sit on the rebuilt wall with Kor beside him, now fully grown and scarred from countless battles. Together they would watch new cubs playing with human children in the streets below, two species that had learned the most important lesson the universe had to teach. Survival belonged not to the strongest or the most fearful, but to those brave enough to extend their hand to the outcast and the abandoned, to those who chose compassion over fear, to those who understood that the fiercest loyalty came from those who had once been shown the smallest kindness.